Then what we do is, as a company, every 4 weeks, we take half of the projects in the company and we sit down with Toby and we go through them all. Every 4 weeks, we take half. So about every 8 weeks, you kind of see everything. And we do it for 3 days, 2 to 3 days. Sometimes hopefully 8 hours a day, but sometimes 12 or 16 hours over the day. And we go through every project or group of projects and we talk about what it is, what we're building towards, the resourcing, what's working, what's not working. Should we remove resources, add resources, stop the project, realign? And we go into an insane amount of detail as we go through these. And then we take lots and lots of notes and action items that they get fed back to the team. A lot of the team is also, gets called in for that review. We do that every month. And it's pretty amazing to watch the level of rigor that the senior leadership team kind of goes through in each of these projects to ensure alignment.
So here with Farhan, who we worked together at Trilogy. We both went to Waterloo. We've known each other for, 20 plus years. And now VP of Shopify, among many different other things that he's done. And just would love to hang out and have a conversation. We started talking even before the hit the record button. But yeah, it's good to see you.
Yeah, I think, weren't you like my intern or something?
Exactly. I was an intern. Totally. Yeah. It was you. It was James Kiger. It was David DeFranco, David Chow. Marie Huang. Yeah, it was just, it's
oh my God, you remember everybody.
Well, yeah, it was my formative years. It's like,
was it 99? What year was 99, 2000? I can't remember.
I think it was
maybe
99. Yeah. It was maybe maybe it was 01. No, it was 01 because there's the whole .com crash that happened while we were there. Yeah. So it was 01. That was great. Yeah.
Cool.
But who do you keep in touch with? Trilogy was this thing in Austin, Texas. There's so many alumni that are all over the place. John Lilly, who was at Greylock and it was at Firefox. That's one.
I mean, Shrep was an intern apparently and became CTO of Facebook. And there's a lot of, Trilogy was this amazing place where we just tried to hire the best people from every school. And we wanted people who we could form, right? Not a lot of people. There was industry hires, but much more focused on what they call college hiring, university hiring, and bringing the smart people out. So I remember coming in 98. The company was only 250 people, and then they hired 250 people on the same day. And we were all from different schools, and I think it was just me and Steve Goldsmith were the Waterloo contingent in 98, but there was Harvard, MIT, Carnegie Mellon, CMU, Stanford, Rice, all these folks, and we split everybody up into development, consulting, recruiting, UX, and it was school, I guess, for the first 6 weeks, right? Intense boot camp, set working hours, 100 hours a week for 6 weeks, try to build a startup or onboard into the tech stack. And what's crazy about that experience is that the mailing list is still pretty active. Every day or a few times a week, you get an email on that list. And I left 24 years ago. So it's pretty nuts ecosystem.
Was that the Yahoo Groups list?
It's still, you may not be on the new one. It's now migrated to Google Groups.
Okay, great. I got to get back on that. What if there'll ever be a reunion?
So if you're on the list, you'd know. We do one every year.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
in Austin, usually around South by Southwest in Austin, there's usually at least one big meetup.
Oh, that's incredible. Okay. So that's amazing. So, Steve Goldsmith, he's now I knew him sort of when he was doing some Atlassian stuff. He's I think at Cloudflare. Yeah. Great guy. It's incredible. That network.
Yeah. There's lots. The folks have gone on. Some of the people I keep in touch with, Josh Walsky, who's, in Austin now, Brian Stafford, CEO of Diligent, Vinaya, I can't remember where she was at Salesforce for a while and she just switched over to another company. So I keep in touch with all sorts of smart folks from those days.
So what do you think about growing up in that era versus now? So you're leaving college and, a lot of people are talking about remote work and, if you got Shopify and all these folks, what's it like now to be a college grad?
Yeah. I think back then what was crazy is before the .com or even during the .com, because people who got into computer science or computer engineering were entering without the allure of the how lucrative it could be. We're just we're nerds. We're just going to do my parents actively told me, don't do computer science. There's no jobs. And that was true while I was in school because even trying to get a co-op job was, semi difficult. And then when we exited, we're oh my God, the .com craziness. And I would say what's changed is one, the it became more enticing because it was like, hey, there's actually money here. It's fun. It's learning. And so it became more popular versus just like the nerds in the corner, or what my mom would say, like the people in the back office at the bank. Like it wasn't like, it wasn't cool, right? It was almost like Office Space, the guy in the basement. That's what it was considered. And then it became kind of like, hey, actually, this is value creating. You can learn a lot. It's a fun field to go into. I would say right now, there's a little bit of the feeling of like doom, given the like how AI could potentially change software engineering. So I'm seeing some early signs of like potential declines in people applying to computer science. Early talent is harder to, find a job. And so I unfortunately feel like it's an amazing time to be a software engineer, but it is going to be, I think people will be dissuaded from joining this field because I think it's going to be massively disrupted by AI. And I actually think it will be massively disrupted, but I think the job will just change versus versus go away.
Yeah, and how does that change like engineering hiring, like coding, projects, things like that? Like what do you like? There was before and now. Like what is it like now?
Yeah, I mean, a few things have changed. One is we now, Toby did this amazing memo. Like we have AI expectations for everyone in the company, and so for a while we've been hiring people with the notion of like come to the interview with your favorite LLM. Like I'm trying to hire AI centaurs, right? In the past, I was trying to hire like computer science generalists or problem solvers, people who are curious. I still want all of those things. I just now have an expectation that you're likely going to be more productive, learn faster, build more quickly if you come with an LLM plus your brain. And so we made those changes a few years ago to like evaluate you with an LLM. The other thing we made a change was I want to make sure we still hire lots of early talent because similar to mobile, and like my background's in mobile, that people growing up grew up with phones. And so they understood mobile differently than the like us who like remember when we bought our first cell phone. And same thing's happening with AI. There are people who are growing up now that won't remember a time before ChatGPT, a time before LLMs. And we want those people to come on this journey with us. And the Shopify journey is to create more entrepreneurship. But we want those people in the company to help us rethink how we should be building things for that new generation of entrepreneur as well. And so, I famously went out and said, I'm going to hire 1,000 interns in 2025. We're likely going to be pretty close to hitting that number this year. And it's because it's not like for charity. I'm not doing it for fun. I'm doing it because actually we will learn from them as much as they will learn from us, hopefully. We'll probably learn more from them, actually.
That's incredible. And then like, what is that internship experience like these days, right? Like, do they have, do they get onboarded with AI tools?
Yeah, one is like, again, we evaluate you. Hopefully you don't have to have an AI tool. We just think you'll probably get creamed by somebody who does. And so you probably want to have some notion of being able to come to work with these tools and this mindset. And of course, we onboarded you to various teams across the company. We like small teams. We think anyone can have a big impact here. It doesn't have to be a team of 100. It could be a team of 5. And it's 4 months long. You have the opportunity to have a big impact, do multiple terms, and maybe even end up full-time at Shopify working on, making entrepreneurship more common for everybody. And so our tool chain is still Ruby on Rails, because we feel like that's the place where folks can have a lot of productivity and happiness. We have a monorepo, so it makes it interesting for us to build software in a way where you have over 1,000 people in a single repository, and eventually 3,000 people in a single repository, because we're going to a monorepo as well as a monolith. And so we believe there's a lot of value in just making things simple and trying to allow engineers to have what we call like a 10x engineering environment to work through. So great developer tools, great colleagues. A lot of times you look, like the funny thing about Shopify, sometimes you'll be like, wow, it was like you talk to somebody and realize it's the person who like wrote the book or wrote the spec or is a core contributor to the technology that we're actually working through. So it's pretty fun.
How do you sort of manage an organization that large with all these engineers, right? Like how do you like what are your dashboards like, the reporting cadence? Like how do you make sure that you're kind of pushing towards sort of optimum and developing?
Yeah, so a bunch of things. One, so Toby ships his themes for the year January 1st. And these are overarching themes that are not usually a surprise to people. Like Shopify should be reliable. Shopify should keep our merchants on the cutting edge of technology, right? Like there's all these things that are like highbrow ways for us to think about steering the direction of the company. And then within there, we typically have projects that help us think through how we can enable more entrepreneurship. So it could be anything from, hey, we think we need to enable some features such that merchants can save time being in our tools. It might be infrastructure such that we can be more reliable or make things simpler or increase performance via making things more simple. And the cadence of the company, when you mentioned cadence, is really a week. We try to push
Wow.
things like weekly, and we try to check in on things weekly. And the reason for that is that because you can actually get pretty far in a week with a small team. And we want to make sure that the folks who are trying to help align, like looking at, like, for example, if you're looking across dozens of teams, you don't want to see two teams working on the same thing. Instead, like, you should combine and conquer, have them work together, or have one of them work on something else. And we have a very strict way of how we think about building, meaning, like, you remember the whole adage, Steve Jobs, of like the inside of the MacBook must be beautiful. We are very much like that. We want to make sure that it's not just the functionality and infrastructure we enable for the external world. It's that it must be elegant and simple for us to want to work on it for, we say 100 years, or decades to come. And so it really makes sense for us to spend time building that infrastructure correctly. And so we also, not to preface a question, you might just ask us, like, we really focus on something called like a pathfinding exercise. Like, we think everything at Shopify is the exploration of the problem space. And after you solve a problem, in looking back, you're like, oh, now that I've done this and built this, there's the easy path. I wish I knew that before. We encourage you to just delete what you did just now and go build that, because the returns from just actually having the simple thing in production and a simple thing that everything else builds on top of outweighs the, hey, I'm gonna spend a few weeks rewriting the thing after I wrote it. We actually think that's the best time to rewrite it. You just did it. Now you probably know the terrain much better, and hopefully that's the better path. And maybe in doing that, you actually, again, find something even simpler, and we encourage you to explore that one too.
I love that, because like it's kind of like we had that sort of quality and like make the inside beautiful, but then people seem to like refactor a lot and actually do it kind of the wrong way, and they kind of run out of time because they have to ship, and it's like it's like a mess, and we don't have time to go fix it. But you've got this kind of beautiful thing about like deleting things that don't work, right? And I think you're kind of known about that concept. Where did that come from, and like how do you apply it?
It's deleting is underused. Like, iterating is very often used. And like, it's similar to, I went through like a house renovation, and I have a friend who went through a house renovation, and the easiest thing is actually to like tear it down and start from scratch. And it sounds funny, or at least like tear it down to the studs and then rebuild, versus saying, oh, I'm going to iteratively, like, I'm just going to move the kitchen. Like, that's like actually way harder than let me just start over. And so I think it's a lot of it comes from the sunk cost fallacy. Once you do all the work, you're like, oh my God, the thing that was valuable here is the code. And that's not true. The thing that was valuable here was the learning. And you can quickly reimagine and rebuild the code. And we have many examples. We had a recent one where a team had worked for 18 months on something, significant team, let's say dozen or 24 engineers. And after the whole thing was built, I just said, hey, like, if you could start over now, like, how would you build it? Like, oh, we wouldn't build it this way. We know exactly how to do it. And probably just take us a couple months. I'm like, do that. Like, delete everything. And they did. They built it in 3 months, and it's now the basis for a bunch of infrastructure that we have. And it was freeing for them to also be like, actually, all the learning is coming here. Let's just take advantage of it. Where does it come from? I mean, I've never met anybody like Toby. He is very much on a problem-solving quest, and he's just so very curious. And very rarely do we allow ourselves to fall in love with the solution. We just really, really care about the problem, and when you do that, the solution is just like some transient thing that, like, oh yeah, that solution, yeah, let's discard that one. Let's just he has this funny line where he said, there's an infinite number of wrong solutions. There's probably 10,000 right solutions. You've just presented me the first right one that you found. Like, why did you stop there? Like, there's so many other right solutions. Like, how do you know this is the right one of the 10,000? Like, you have to keep exploring. Even though you have something that works.
So how do you go further? Like, how do you or Toby drill down and like dive deep and get context?
We have a bunch of cadences around this too. So the cadence of the company runs on a week. We have an internal tool called GSD. It stands for Get Shit Done. And every week Teams are expected to post updates into the project so that everybody can get aligned around like what's happening in the project. They're encouraged to put in demos, like high fidelity videos and charts to show like how things are going. Right? It might be like data quality, and they'll show like how much better the data is getting, or it's a demo of a feature, or it's infrastructure building, and they can do a demo of that. And then what we do is, as a company, every 4 weeks, we take half the projects in the company and we sit down with Toby and we go through them all. Every 4 weeks, we take half. So about every 8 weeks, you kind of see everything. And we do it for 3 days, 2 to 3 days. Like, sometimes hopefully 8 hours a day, but sometimes 12 or 16 hours over the day. And we go through every project or group of projects and we talk about what it is, what we're building towards, the resourcing, what's working, what's not working. Should we remove resources, add resources, stop the project, realign? And we go into an insane amount of detail as we go through these. And then we take lots and lots of notes and action items that they get fed back to the team. A lot of the team is also, gets called in for that review. We do that every month. And it's pretty amazing to watch the level of rigor that the senior leadership team kind of goes through in each of these projects to ensure alignment. And so that's what we're doing. And I tell people, imagine you're working on a project, it comes up in a review like that, and you get some pretty harsh feedback around like actually going in the wrong direction. But you want that. You want to be aligned. You want that feedback. And then if you're aligned, great. If you're not aligned, you now have feedback on how to get aligned. Like if you are a curious problem solver, not in love with the solution, that is exactly how you should react to that type of feedback.
Oh, that's crazy. That's awesome. So what's the format? AWS has their sort of 6-pager and their PRFAQ, like you got the GSD as a system that goes into, but what's the sort of like structure of that review?
We just have a different viewport into GSD when we go through those reviews. And so it's the same data set, but we have a view that shows us project groupings by group, basically. Like we want to put everything that has to do with a certain area together. It shows us a history of the resourcing. It shows us a history of the updates. It actually even checks like proof of life. Like, are there PRs against this project? Like, does it actually have activity happening? It will show, is it on track, off track? How long do we think the release is? So it kind of gives you all the metadata around the project. And then, again, like I mentioned, the team would be in the meeting and can quickly walk through. Sometimes it's only 60 seconds, 120 seconds. Sometimes it's half an hour because we want to have a discussion about the direction that it may or may not be going in. But the key is that every month at the leadership level from Toby downwards, we are looking at these things across the company versus just saying, let's just stay up here and talk about like product lines or like have, like we don't do it that way. We kind of go all the way to the project.
How big is a project? What's the smallest, biggest team for a project?
Yeah, I mean, the smallest project can be one person, right? It can be pretty tiny. It's not usually that depends on the project. Usually we would look at a grouping of projects in that review. It's possible it might be like, what's this thing? And go down into that. And then a big project would be dozen, maybe 2 dozen. Like we try not to get too big. Some of the groups can obviously be bigger, like, checkout could have over 100 engineers, but the things that each group inside of that team is working on would be much smaller.
Do you think GSD is something that would be like Asana coming out and shipping it someday, or is it very like Shopify, like specific?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. One is, maybe this is treats you a little bit on like AI, but like even before AI software development, we really felt that the way Shopify builds software is quite different than others. So we didn't feel like we could adopt an external tool because then that external tool would be telling us how to work, very much like the first you make the tool and then the tool makes you. And so we were very worried about having our own opinion about how to build software. And so we have our own tool to manage that software. It's very bespoke. And I think people are predicting now with the age of AI and vibe coding, there's going to be just much, much more bespoke software. But this is something that's very bespoke. Like it actually takes time and energy to turn bespoke software into like agnostic software. And so generalized software. And so it would be very unlikely for us to want to turn this into something else.
Oh, that's super interesting because a lot of people would think the opposite. It's like, I want to follow like the practices of all these different people and like, the people, we use Jira, we use GitHub as well. And those tools, you're right, they shape you, right? And they're like,
exactly.
So GSD, but how far do you go with that? Like, how important is this? Would you go to something else? Is this something that you think other, like you've tried, there's like a million paths that are wrong. There's 10,000 that are right, right? You found some that are right. Do you think other companies should try to do the same, like find the path that you found or find the path that's for them?
I don't think people should do the same. I mean, it's similar to like remote. We tell most people you should not do remote. Like even though we're remote, we tell you not to do it only because we've built so much infrastructure around it. And it's clear, like, no one's going to debate what's better, IRL or remote. IRL is better. Like if you and I were in the same room having this conversation, it would be better, higher fidelity. No one's going to debate that. The thing is, what do you get with remote and what are the trade-offs? And so I tell most people, you should actually be IRL. Like, don't try to do what we're doing. And similarly here, we've tried lots of tools. I mean, I've worked on lots of tools in my career as well. I think that we just feel like there's an outsized advantage for us with this tool. We have a team that's on the tool, and I can literally in the review say, hey, by the way, it'd be really cool to get this. And like usually in less than 10 minutes, they have like a view of the thing I'm saying. Because again, we own the entire stack here and we can really tune it to our shape. And so I don't think that, that doesn't mean that we can't learn from everybody. I look at great tools, Linear, and I'm a big Pivotal Tracker fan. And, we don't use Jira, but I can look at that too and say, wow, they're really doing this thing. We can learn from it and we could implement our version of what that is. So it doesn't stop us. But yes, we have a tool and we have a team that then maintains it. But we're very much DIY culture around some of these things. I mean, I'll give you an example, like, just because this happened the other week, is like we use MySQL. We're probably the second biggest MySQL fleet in the world outside of Meta. We patch MySQL when we find problems. Like we patch it, we ship it back to the community. Like we're core contributors to Ruby, Rails, React Native, like a bunch of these core techs. So if we think that there's something we want to rely upon, it's an open source, great, we'll adopt it. We become core contributors, we push it back to the community. But that's, again, our point of view, and we're hoping other people can take advantage of some of the learnings we had there. But on tools, like we do, of course, we have GitHub as well. But we try to, and then we try to use as much of GitHub as we can because we think that that's like another piece of leverage, but we have to be careful on it telling us how to work.
Are there like one or two examples because I think on our side, we're sort of adopting a lot of the tools. Is there like one or two things, like, for example, like this thing, if you do it this way, you're going to behave this way. And it's like, it's worth that investment to sort of DIY it.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I worry about, and like, let's take any of the project management tools, Pivotal or Linear or Jira or Asana or any of these tools, is there's this thing, and I think I'm credible enough to talk about it because of like my experience at Pivotal and being like quite immersed in like the agile world, is what I call like agile porn, where you can get into this notion of like burn down charts and reprioritization of backlogs, and you can spend all your time doing like non-value added activities versus actually building the thing you want to build. And so I worry, and we have none of those capabilities in our GSD tool. There's no burn down. There's no way to see a backlog. Like it's literally like we try to stay away from it because we don't think that's value added activity. And so the example here is like we built a tool that in some ways is like super simple and doesn't like, we use GitHub issues for bug tracking. Now it's quite naive and like, for example, we're going to a monorepo and it's actually super hard to do like issue tracking in a monorepo because now I have 3,000 engineers and like, how are we going to categorize it? So we have to come up with our own solutions. But it allows us to not have like this tab that someone might be encouraged to go click on, which shows you like a burn down chart or tries to get you into some notion of something that we don't think is valuable. And so that's an example of one where we just want to do it ourselves and not get distracted. And so I try, I would say another example is on our tool chain, we try to force people to make technology decisions that we can use across the company versus saying like that team has this and that team has that. So for example, we migrated from native to React Native for our mobile apps. All our mobile apps are React Native now. We spent a lot of time with Meta and like the community. We became release captains for React Native, but now everybody uses React Native. If you move from project to project in mobile, it looks the same. If you're a React developer, you can help work on the web. Like we're like engineering fungibility really helped us here. And so we're like, if we had, taken the other path, which by the way, it was around the same time as like Airbnb dumped React Native, we embraced it because we're like, it makes sense for us. Who cares what the industry says? So a lot of times we just make our own opinion and go for it versus just what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, super interesting that thing about burn down charts, because like you figure out your scale. That's like the stats and things that are things that you want to kind of know. How do you forecast? How do you forecast like ship dates and if something's ahead or behind schedule?
Yeah, we don't. I mean, that's the way. I mean, the key thing is that so we do the following. Every 6 months, we have something called editions, where we do a marketing roll up of everything that came out. So it's easier for brands and merchants to go, what has happened in Shopify land over the last 6 months? Because we're shipping all the time, things are coming up all the time, and every half we kind of like maybe have one big flagship thing that we talk about, but everything else is like a roll up of everything that already came out. And if it's not ready, like it's just not in the roll up. Right? It's kind of like if you're ready and you get on the train. If you don't, you just get the next train. And so, yes, of course, we do some kind of planning, and we want to have a cohesive product, and we want to have some notion of t-shirt sizing, but we don't want to use like these like very specific metrics around like whether it's like here's a feature list, we need to get all those in, or something so granular. We want to build a great product, and if the product has like 8 of the 12 things, but we really think we need all 12, we'll just rather like release it when all 12 are there. If it's only 8 and we want to release it as an early preview, we can also do that. But we don't want to be beholden to like this chart that just says, hey, by the way, when you hit this number, it's time to ship. Like that's kind of what we're afraid of, and instead we want to have the human judgment in there to go, you know what? I know you think you have all the minimum viable things, but actually it's not that useful yet. I'd rather you like not release it. And so we have those conversations, and many times things that we thought would be an addition are not. Other times they are in the addition, and we didn't think they were going to make it because the team happened to like get it out the door. But we try not to be so pedantic on the like the burn down and this feature and that feature had to be in there.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I think that like when you have that deep, like sort of monthly like review, it feels like you can get even a more clear picture than the abstraction of like a burnout chart or some statistical
Correct.
measure. Because you've got
Yeah.
like, instead of like 3 data points, you've got like sort of 100 from that review.
Yeah. Well, you have the context of what it is, right? Like the other thing, I just tweeted this out today, which is like everyone keeps asking me, how do you gauge engineering efficiency? And I'm like, weekly demos. Like just do weekly demos. Like you'll have so much fidelity, and you can ask questions like, oh, like that was slow. Is it going to be that slow in production? Or like what's happening? And why does it do that? And what about that line? And why is that word there? Like you get this high fidelity feedback. And so that's, our cadence is on a week. And then when we do those 4-week reviews, we kind of go deep into, a lot of it is also like how it's being built and what are the principles behind how we're building. It's also why we have like themes, not goals, right? The theme is never ending. Shopify should be more reliable. That is always true. Going to be true. I would like it to be even more reliable. I don't care what the number is. Shopify is performant. I don't care that we're likely, pretty sure by order of magnitude, the fastest commerce sites out there. Doesn't matter. We're still slower than 2 times the speed of light, which is our internal goal, right? So we should continue to be going after those themes, regardless of where we think we are on the spectrum of like we're better than everyone else, or we hit 100 milliseconds. Like who cares? Like we still have a long way to go.
That's awesome. How do you structure those in a remote environment? How do you structure those demos? Is that Friday? Is that Monday? Is that like in the morning? Is that in a day?
No, it's async. It's async. It's in the GSD tool. So the demos are all in GSD. There are some teams that get together and say, hey, let's get together and do the demos. I don't have a problem with that either. And they'll do it virtually. But the whole idea is that if the company's cadence is on a week, then there's an expectation that every week that there's updates in there and you can react to those updates. And then we also have like reviews. So like when it's going to production, there's like a hard stop where the leader of the group, the champion of the project or the group has to like take a look and give feedback on that to make sure that it's like worthy to go to production. And there's a bunch of these things that are, again, forcing the leaders to be in the details versus it being like I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, wow, this sounds like really waterfall-y, but it actually wasn't. It was more that we want leaders to be in the details and to like ask lots of questions about how the thing is being designed, not just let it go out to production.
Oh, I love that. I love the idea of getting leaders into the details, because sometimes they're like, I don't know, you should talk to this person. I'm like, okay, but like, and then you very quickly, if you're in a review, you can go down like many layers and get information from like the source just by asking a few questions. And
and
like,
both things can be true, right? The leader can have like 80% of the context. They can pull in somebody, but it's okay to like learn things in that meeting alongside. Like, I think that's also okay.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge I've got sometimes just to be like is like, hey, I get this thing. It's like you need to prove this. What are we doing? We're shutting down this thing to save this money. It's like, how much of like show me the budget? It's like, oh, here's the budget. It's like, well, how much if we actually shut this down will we actually save? It's like actually like 20% because the 80% you actually need it for this thing over here. It's kind of like, and I'm like, okay, understood. But like, if I'm not here, if some of these people aren't here asking those questions, right, then we're making decisions that sort of don't go into detail. So can you say more about making sure that that leader gets into detail? So demos is one. Are there other sort of like weekly, like what sort of cadence, what sort of mechanisms do you do at scale to make sure that the leaders are in the details so that, their leader doesn't, go and find something before they do?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two ways to think about that. One is in the GSD process, we have this thing called OK1 and OK2, which are these gates at certain parts of the project where the champion needs to approve and ensure that things are on the right track. A senior leader from, either PM or engineering or data or UX is of somebody who's like called in to take a look at the project. And so we even have like, for me, I was an OK2. So I go through and I OK2 a bunch of these things before they go to production or make sure they're aligned. Any new project has to have an OK2 approval before it can even be started as a project. So that's the first part about it. The second part is that like there's this notion around like, we use the word micromanagement, but I think it's actually not the right word. But people say something like, oh, micromanagement is bad. You should let your team be completely autonomous, hire smart people and let them do their thing. Like, that's been like the mantra in management books. And what I find now is I really like the pairing analogy where we hire people that are smart, but you in your position are also smart. And really, you're not micromanaging them. You want to pair with them on problems. So when there's a problem, why not attach another smart person to the problem? And so what we're doing here with the OK2 idea is that they're not coming in to say, hey, you did this wrong and whatever. It's like to say, I'm bringing my expertise and my brain to this problem also. Have you thought about this and have you thought about that? So it's not a bad thing to have a leader find something that you didn't find. Now, of course, you want to find as many things as you can, but they're bringing their expertise to bear, and you want to take advantage of that. So there's no downside in them saying, hey, by the way, what about this and what about this and what about that? Like, I think that's actually good. And one of the things I learned from Toby, because I came from that other world, right? I started here and I kept asking why we're doing so many one-on-ones. I'm like, Toby, you hired me. I'm taking all these problems away. You don't have to talk to me. I'm going to go solve all this stuff. And he's looked at me. He's like, you misunderstand our relationship. I want to pair with you on all these problems. That's why I brought you here. And I was like, oh. And like then when I learned that, we spend way more time together on fixing things together, two smart people, versus like me just trying to take problems away. And I think there's lots of ways that can work in a company, but the way Shopify works is that we want the leadership to pair. And so the OK1, OK2 is actually a gate. Things cannot go to production until they pass these gates. And that forces, so leaders likely have the following in their calendar. Like they probably have like a few times a week, they probably have blocks, which is like OK1 reviews or OK2 reviews, because projects get stopped if they don't go through those gates. So that's one way to force it. Another way to force the details is like the 4-week reviews that we do with Toby, because you really want to know everything going on in your area when you go into that review. There's action item from last time. Like, there's a bunch of things that are like forcing you to kind of stay in the details versus being high level. So people will say, I love and hate OK2 reviews or OK1 reviews. It's like, I have to do it, forces me in the details, but then I love it because it forces me to be in the details.
That's awesome. I feel like I'm gonna do some sort of like version of that. Like after this, I was like, I want to go.
Like one of the things that I, outside of Shopify was Brian Chesky did a video on this on Lenny's podcast. He said something very similar. He's like, it sounds like it's more work to get into the details. And he goes, over time, it turns out it's less work. Because you do all that work being in the details of the projects, and then at the end, you're not like the person who's like trying to align this thing that's gone off the rails. You've been there the whole time. And so it's like really cool. If you haven't watched the Lenny interview, Brian Chesky, it's worth watching it. And it was like, as I watched it, I'm like, oh my God, we do this at Shopify.
Yeah, Brian Chesky's got these. He talks a lot about that, which is like if you sort of like set the structure like foundationally, then it's way easier to fix things upstream, right?
Correct. But it's fun. It just hit me when he's like, it sounds like it's more work to be in like Toby being in 3 days of reviews every 4 weeks. Sounds like a lot, but actually it's less than trying to get all these projects back on the rails because they were all completely misaligned.
Yeah, 100%. How do you do with the sort of times? I guess you guys are East Coast, right? So East Coast is
We're East Coast. I mean, we have people all over the world. Most of the company is East Coast. Of course, like I would say definitely like you expand a little bit, mostly North America. But yeah, mostly East Coast.
Okay, so then you have an 8-hour review and you can kind of fit the time zones together. Like West
No,
Coast is a little
people
harder
no,
if
for
you've got.
reviews, there'll be a set of people who come IRL, and then there'll be a set
Okay.
of people who we call in. Yeah, that's how it works.
Oh, great. Okay. And then
Yeah.
how's that? Yeah. So what's that day like? Is that like do people have are they like is it like they're splashing Gatorade themselves like as you go through the day like
It's a combination. I mean,
what's
like
the
there's a bunch of us who are in there the whole time for the whole 3 days, and then there's people who come in and out for their section. Yeah, we've
and is
actually
it
even
like
done in the remote world. We even did them in VR for a while.
how's that?
I thought it was amazing. It didn't really work for everyone because there are times when like the people who were coming in weren't in VR, so they were kind of like 2D while we were 3D, and so for that reason it didn't really work. But I would like to try it again. I'm pretty sure we were the only company really trying it for this use case. Like we would do it. I think I was in VR 6 hours a day for 3 days, with a 1 hour break in the middle for lunch. So I feel like I like a lot of experience doing it, but I would like to try it again because I don't know if I think it's the same hardware. I don't think Oculus has come up with something newer, but I think the software has changed dramatically. So definitely want to try it again.
Yeah, we tried. We did a long time ago. We got everyone VR headsets. We hit this 40 user limit for like the space. That was
Oh,
earlier back then. It
yeah,
was like the
we don't
early
have, we
days.
definitely don't
Yeah.
have more than 40 people. Like in a review, it'd probably be max. I would say in the room, it's usually like 8 or something, 10. And then people being remoted in, maybe a maximum another 10, but usually less than that.
And do you have like big do you have big sort of like screen setups or is everyone a little
Yeah, yeah.
laptop? Like okay.
Yeah, we have a screen. We have like we do it in either New York or Toronto. We have a room. It's all set up. We have people in adjacent rooms as well. People can come in and out. It's very much. It's got a whole workflow. We've got a tool. It tells you you're behind schedule, on schedule. Like it has a timer built in. It's like we're trying to kind of make sure we can hit as much as we can. But sometimes, we don't adhere to the timer. If we're like, hey, this is important, we don't care. It's going to go red. We're going to talk about this thing for half an hour. It is what it is. But we try to have some semblance of organization. But then if something's interesting, we just stay on that topic.
So you got your monthly reviews. Like what else is your cadence? Do you have sort of like business reviews? Do you have like leadership offsites? Do you have like what's that sort of and what are the most important things you think about? Like what are things that other like leaders, CEOs can sort of pick up, do you think? Be like,
Yeah. So one of the things we do is because we're remote is we have something called Shopify Summit, which is once a year. It's 4 days. Everyone comes to one location. And so we fly in the whole company. It just happened in May. And we bring the whole company in. We have 1 day of like talks where like leadership comes out and talks about different things, whether it's product, whether it's about culture and alignment and goals and themes. And then we do 3 days of hackathon. And the idea behind the hackathon is, one, get out of your comfort zone, work on something new. There's a lot of learning. Like, yes, you might ship something, but the whole point is like learn, work with people you haven't worked with before, be IRL with lots of people. Some people stay till like 4 a.m. Some people, can hang out and work on things they didn't get to work on. Lots of people learning how to code, using AI, if you're in engineering, doing things in data, if you're in data, doing things in UX, like kind of just running all over the place. And it really sets the tone for the coming months because then everybody kind of goes back remote, but they kind of we have this thing called the trust battery. And all the trust batteries are like recharged as you're IRL with people. And then over time, you feel like it kind of drains because you're not IRL. And then you can recharge again next year's summit. Or we also have a thing called bursts where you're working on a project, you want to kick something off, you want to celebrate something. You can get together with the team and do a burst, which is usually in one of our ports. Like we're remote, but we have offices kind of like if you want to come in. But these offices are used for bursts as well. So Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, New York, Seattle are where the offices are. So you can use those to have one of these bursts.
how big are those offices? Are those like full offices or are they just like it's just like, is that like a retreat area?
No, the Toronto office is like the same Toronto office that we used to use when we were in Toronto. Like it hold over 1,000 people.
And is it like a ghost town in between or is it between bursts or is it like
it's not a full ghost town because like I talked about the internship program. I really felt like for interns that they need to have an IRL cohort. And so the expectation of interns is that they're actually in the office. And so interns come into the office. And again, because I'm hiring so many, there's always hundreds of interns in. if you are a mentor or a manager of an intern, you are also expected to come in multiple times a week. And then if you're not in town because you just live, remote, you're expected to come in once a month. And so there are always people in there, plus add on top of that the bursts, plus add on top of the people like myself and Toby and whoever else. Like I go in like 3 days a week. And so there's a bunch of us who kind of go in as well. So it's never like empty. But yes, you can see it has like ebbs and flows. Like sometimes it's jammed. You're like, whoa, everybody's here today. What's happening? And then other times you're like, wow, there's nobody here. It's like, right after Summit, everyone's gone on vacation or something.
Oh, when is Summit? Is that like
it's once a year.
or...
We just did it. We did it in May this time. It's in Toronto.
So that's a lot of infrastructure. You talked about remote, right? And other people shouldn't do it, but you've got a lot of different remote infrastructure. You talked about like the Office, Burst, all that. What else is sort of like other than those things, what are the other high impact things that other remote companies might think about like adding?
Yeah. I mean, we have a town hall that's remote that is once a month that kind of we highlight different either great merchants and brands that are on the platform and things that sometimes they come on with us and tell us about the problems and what's working well and what's not working well. We showcase different internal projects. The last town hall, which I was on, we talked about hack days and all the cool innovations that can come out of hack days and why we do it. So that's another ritual. We use like remote tools, we're very much like a messaging. So we use Slack. As a messaging tool. We use async videos, which are, again, either in part of Slack or in GSD that showcase like what we're working on. We're not really heavy email. We do use email, but I would say it's more like external communications on email. I'm trying to think of anything else. And I'd say like GSD is really part of the flow there. You can follow projects. It sends you an update. You can, join in reviews and give feedback. You can see the latest demos. And then all that, there's a lot of AI that is now coming into play that helps you ingest and digest some of these things. But that's why I say for like remote, like there's a lot of infrastructure to help you kind of feel like you are connected to the company versus like if you're trying to do this from scratch, I would highly recommend going IRL because it's much harder than to set up this whole infrastructure.
I'm so curious about GSD now, but you said something that caught my ear. You said there's no backlog. Like, what does that mean? There's no backlog.
Yeah, there's no formal. So one of the problems that can happen on Agile is you have this like the giant backlog, but you really only care about what's going to happen over the next few weeks. Like you want to have a vision for the product. Yeah. And sometimes you break that vision down into like, hey, here's like 75 stories. And what I found what happens in Agile a lot is people end up spending a lot of time tending the backlog. Like you might reprioritize story number 60 with 65 and you're like, we're not even close to anywhere near there, and now you've done something that like it's not actually valuable. So we don't have that burn down. We don't have this giant list. So what ends up happening is, yes, we have GitHub issues. Yes, there's lots of things in there, but as we curate what we want to work on, we want to focus on the highest impact order of things, and we don't need to have like a very strict backlog. This is going to be week 3, icebox. Like again, a lot of the Agile terminology. It's much more like, here's a bunch of stuff and let's figure out what we think the high priority things are. And we're trying to do less planning, more working. And so there's very few like of the very strict Agile rituals like planning cycle, retrospective. Like I find those valuable and there's lots of companies that do them and they can be valuable. Just here, we think that we're going to mostly try to adhere to the greater themes of the company and do those more as like as an exercise as we plan out like, hey, here's how we want to go from A to B. And the planning is useful, but the plan is useless. So we don't spend too much time creating that plan.
Yeah, I completely agree. We try to do here, like there's a vision and there's like a high level roadmap, which is like, here's like the week, the quarter, the month, and then the half is like kind of blurry behind that. And it's like, yeah, so you have, but you know what you're working towards.
Yeah, we know what we're working towards. Mark Zuckerberg had a funny line where he said, we do 6-month planning and 25-year planning, nothing in between. And that's kind of the idea where like we have a vision for how do we make entrepreneurship more common. And we had these posters in the office that said like, if you had to choose a path, choose the one that leads to more entrepreneurs. So we kind of have like this very short window of like what's coming up. And then we have this vision of where we want to go. And we try not to do that middle part, which is like, again, can just be toil for no reason because you know what you want to do immediately and you kind of know where you're going. But that middle part is always murky. And so we don't spend that much time on that.
How do you deal with, and this is a little different because our business is a little bit more national security critical infrastructure. But how do you deal with like these very quick changes that happen in the world? So for example, like today,
Yep.
Grok 4 just came out, right? Like,
Yep.
what does that mean? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and you have your plans, but like, I mean, how do you react? How do you sort of incorporate all the stuff that goes on in the last, call it 6 months?
Yeah. So I think two ways. One, we mostly try to build things as infrastructure. And what that means is that instead of building features, we try to build things such that us and others could build on top of our infrastructure quickly to enable things. So for example, during COVID, we switched over from trying to build infrastructure to just taking advantage of all the infrastructure we had to enable our merchants to like survive through COVID, because like IRL went away, everybody went online, they needed more capability and more capacity to kind of get online more quickly and to ship locally and do things that like were not natural in the normal state of business. And so I'll give you an example. In, I don't know, 21 or 22, in the last crypto summer, I feel like it's maybe crypto summer again,
Yeah.
but everyone was clamoring for NFTs. Do you remember that? Like NFTs
Yes.
everywhere. And like you should only be able to see the price in my store if you have my NFT, or you should only be able to check out if you have my NFT. And so it was pretty easy for us to build these NFT features into storefronts, right? Like a couple weeks, you can gate the pricing, you can gate the checkout based on NFT. But what Toby really challenged us to do is he said, well, you're thinking about it the wrong layer. What if you could build the infrastructure so that anyone could build an app on top of Shopify to enable NFT checkout or NFT prices in an hour? So he's kind of pushing us to think through, if you build things at the right layer, it'll take you longer because you're building infrastructure, but people could build the thing they want quickly, and they could build all kinds of other things that you never thought about. And so one of the ways when you say like, how do you take advantage? Well, I mean, we have an LLM proxy, and the LLM proxy abstracts away all the LLMs behind it. It has failover, it has retries, it has, one LLM goes down, it can quickly swap over. If you have to scale, it can automatically start sending traffic to multiple LLMs. Like, it has all these things. So when Grok 4 comes out, I go to the team and I'm like, so like, are you adding Grok 4? They're like, yep. Like, it's easy because we have the infrastructure. And now if you have something built on top of in Shopify that uses the LLM proxy, you could either ask for Grok 4, or in your whatever query that gets the dropdown, Grok 4 just isn't available. Like, you don't have to do anything else. And because we built the infrastructure to do that. And of course, we try to use open source. And so our chat infrastructure is built on top of LibreChat. We became LibreChat core contributors, so we can kind of help shape where it goes. But that, again, is infrastructure that enables everything in the future to be built on top of it. And we don't have to worry about like, oh my God, this new thing came out. But one of the reasons actually people use Shopify is that we tell them, we will read all the papers, so you don't have to read them, right? Like, we want to give them that value. And if Grok 4, as an example today, is super interesting for our brands or our employees, like, it's enabled today in the LLM proxy, and then folks can take advantage and see if there's real value there.
That's amazing. So today is July 10th, right? So who knows, this will come out a little bit while. And like, how do you think about like, I mean, who knows how the future turn out? Like, you got MCP, you've got these different models coming out. When you think about like the right way to build software, which I'm sure is going to change in like 2 minutes, but like, what's your current hypothesis about how like, what is the architecture that you're sort of like thinking about longer term based on everything today?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's interesting is, like, I would say even a year ago, each LLM required certain way, like you have to prompt it in a different way. It's like Gemini needed a different prompt than OpenAI. And you're like, okay, how do I, incorporate these things together? But our hypothesis back then was, as the LLMs get larger, the actual prompt techniques will go away. And actually every LLM could be prompted the same way. And that turned out to be true. We knew that the LLM proxy, just being able to switch between models, being able to choose between them, being able to fail over, being able to scale, that was going to be important no matter what. Because if you're in production and OpenAI goes down, like, part of your functionality doesn't work. So you need to have backups. And can you back up to the same model on a different cloud? Can you just back up to a different model on a different cloud? Like, there's all kinds of questions you could answer, but building that infrastructure made it actually easy for us to not have to worry about that at the application layer. So most of the things we do, again, the same idea, like you said, like, software development is going to change. We have GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot allows you to now choose whatever model you want. We have Cursor. Cursor allows you to choose whatever model you want. Like, we try to give you the ability to not get blocked on a certain opinion. We do have some opinions. Like I told you earlier, we want to be a monolith. We want to be in a monorepo. We use Ruby on Rails. We deploy on GCP. So like we're removing the solution space of a bunch of things so you don't have to like think. And then there's other parts of the infra that is like, hey, this world is crazy. LLMs are crazy. We don't know what model is going to be the best, what inference engine is going to be the best. So we're just going to give them all to you. And you could just ask the LLM proxy, I'm just going to send you a query and you just use whatever you want. Or you can ask it for a specific model with a specific context, and you can go that way. So we're trying to be a little bit different in how we approach the AI tools because it is the Wild West. But I would say one thing, and again, I've tweeted about this too, is the inclination at the beginning was to like gate like O1 Pro because it's expensive and other ones. And like we're shying away from that. We just think that if you are able to find value and it's expensive, but the value is commensurate with the expense, go for it. Like use O1 Pro all day long or O3 Pro, whatever you think the latest one is for your use case. And if the value is there, like great, like use it, reduce the toil for your job. And we actually have a leaderboard internally that tells us like by day or by week the biggest token users, and like we celebrate it. Yeah.
Oh man, I want that, dude. Like, yeah, I feel like we go back and just go like, I've sent a bunch of like notes out. It's like, do this, let's do this.
One of the weeks, our CTO was like the biggest token user. So
that's awesome. So one of the things you talked about is the monorepo, because we've gone both ways. We started as a monorepo, we went in and broke it all out. Now we're back in a monorepo. So like, but what drove that? That's a big change, right? Like how the decision happened.
We started as a monorepo also, and we slowly, ended up in like I would say microservices world, but like macro services world where there was like bigger services that people were calling. And usually microservices or just services in general tend to be like a technical solution for like a political problem in the company. It's like that team doesn't want to work with that team, or I want to do this and their timeline is different than mine. And so I'm just going to go do this thing on the side. I don't have to worry about it. I'll just integrate it at the network layer or API layer. Like that's the wrong solve. The right solve is like, hey, you two should talk about it and figure out why and how to align as this infrastructure is going to be used by lots of people. So let's make sure that what you're building, like figure out where it should go in the code base and align on timelines. Like one of the things we say is there's no owners in Shopify, there's just stewards. So if you want to go into some piece of code that you don't know well, you can talk to that team. They can help steward the PR through reviews and things like that, but you don't have to wait for them. You can say, hey, you know what? I need this thing. It's not on your roadmap and not on your timeline, but I'm going to work on it. Let's work together. Right? Maybe I'll pair with one person, or like, let's try to get it through. Versus, I'm just going to go on the side here, build this thing in a different repo, because I need it right now. And now later on, like who's going to maintain it? And it just becomes a cluster F and how to manage dependencies. And so we're doing the hard work to go back to a monorepo. We think there's many, many more advantages. I'm hearing this actually, by the way, in lots of different parts of industry where people are going back to monorepo. And it doesn't mean you can't have modules and modularization. It doesn't mean you can't have good code structure. It just means like everything's in one repo. And we think it just will simplify more than it complexifies. And it'll take us time. It'll be work. And we're in that messy middle where it's like not clear yet that it's like people are like just they're feeling the pain, but they're not feeling the value. I think they will feel the value once we get to the end of this.
As part of this decision, like was AI involved? The fact that a monorepo is going to be like perhaps easier to understand?
I think it's going to be harder to understand. And the reason I think that is because right now, the context window of these models is limited by like certain code base sizes. And I think we have one of the largest Ruby code bases in the world. So we require like a lot of context to ingest it. That's not a reason to like choose. It's like, what's the right architecture? And AI will catch up. So I'm not worried about that. But eventually, yes, I do think that in a monorepo world, it should be easier to navigate, easier to like not have to worry about dependencies and libraries and things because everything's there for you. You don't have to go across the network, right? So I think there's a lot of advantages. And I think AI will just catch up, meaning you just have infinite context window and you can just say, hey, like, how do I update tax settings? And it'll show you. Or, I mean, the ultimate thing would be like, okay, let's take the entire code base. Now that you know the entire code base, how would you rewrite it more elegantly to like with these features? Like, and I think that's like super interesting.
We have this issue, which is that like where AI tools come in, but so many parts of our monorepo are like different coding styles that it's just trying to pattern match. It doesn't, it's like we're schizophrenic and everything works within the module.
But I think that's when you can point it to like, hey, this is the kind of like context engineering, right? Prompt engineering is the way forward here. And you can basically say, here's the part of the code or section of the code that we want everything else to look like. We think it's the definitive way for how code should be structured. Or here is this open source project. Let's make our code look like that. Like there's a bunch of things you can do there. And I don't think you're limited by it being a monorepo.
That makes sense. How far do you think this can go? Like, so now we kind of go back to the start of the conversation about like engineering is totally different now, right? And now it's like you're looking for centaurs. Like what is, so how do you, so I'll back up. This is the problem I've got. We got sort of three types of people. AI forward, and you show it, right? And then there's people who are like, we don't want to do AI. Here's the problems that we see, and our productivity is going to be limited. Here's the things we try. There's another part which is hard, which is like, yes, we want to do AI, but they don't actually do anything. Right? Like, do you see, like, is that pattern matching?
Yeah,
like, how do you think about?
I think that makes sense. I mean, I think I would say when we first started adopting like GitHub Copilot, there was like many more folks on the skeptical side. But I would say, don't forget, like, we don't force you to use AI. We just say that our expectations of your impact are as if you had an AI tool and you know how to wield it. So it's possible, by the way, for you to completely crush and do amazing things without using any AI tools. We just think over time that becomes less and less likely because you just won't be able to keep up with those who know how to wield these things. That's our hypothesis. Maybe that will bear out to not be true, but I'd be skeptical because even in interviews right now, when I shadow interviews, if I shadow a candidate and they don't use an AI tool, which again is allowed, usually I will do the problem twice as fast and send it to the interviewer and say, hey, like I used Copilot and please mark my answer along with theirs, and I've not lost yet against someone who doesn't use AI. So I think that is tougher, but in those camps, I think some of it is like there's the AI forward and they're embracing it quickly. The not AI is interesting because I think everybody has a point, right? They're like, hey, it hallucinates, it's slower, it's producing too much code, it's like it's not adhering to our standards. Like there's lots of reasons. And I just think those reasons one by one start going away. And so I think you have to kind of figure out what parts of the stack you want to take on. So for example, you may not like, I was just watching a Andre Karpathy talk and he said he likes the autocomplete, but doesn't like the agentic side, right? And then I saw another talk from Steve Yegi who said like, I'm fully agentic and like you can't, Copilot is not like autocomplete is not enough. Like everyone's got their own view. I think over time, everyone's going to have their own style, kind of like the VI versus Emacs versus IntelliJ, like, wars where people have their own views of how they want to use the editor. So I think that will change. But for now, I think it's okay to be in the like skeptical side, but I think you need to try it in order to see like, hey, where is it valuable, where it's not for your use case. And then the last people who talk about it and don't do it, I would encourage like role modeling and pair programming. Like we try to share things like, oh my God, look at this. We have hackathons twice a year where we encourage you, and we have full on, like we have a place called like now I'm forgetting the name of it. It's like Learning Lab, whatever, like Learning Center. Everybody can kind of go and go get together and like see like, okay, we'll give you an introduction to Claude Code. And like we'll show you assignments and examples, and you can pair with people on like learning how to build things agentically, or pair program on using an autocomplete with like Copilot. Like we want to role model those things because we want to show people a different way. And then you might take that and go like, this is cool, I'm going to use it for this, but for this, I'm going to just go straight up VI.
Yeah, totally with you. I got a couple questions, and I'm going to go to a rapid fire round if that's all right. One is something we talked about before, which is just like kids, right? Like kids are growing up in this like weird age. You shared a bunch of things with me, but like when you think about like kids today, AI, jobs, college, what are the things that are in your mind when you think about just like family for the other sort of like parents out there?
Yeah. I mean, I think so I have 3 kids, 15, 13, 11. I encourage their use of AI. It's kind of like encouraging their use of the internet or phones. Like you want to make sure that they are using all the latest tools. Like my scary thing, I mean, we both went to Waterloo. My scary, scary thing that I thought would happen would be like the universities would ban AI, and then all these graduates would graduate not knowing how to use the AI tools. And I'm like, how can I hire them? Like I need to hire people who know how to use the tools. But like that was a danger. I was like, if you're a university and you're banning AI, how am I going to hire the people who come out of your school? So instead, and actually I talked to Waterloo about this, and one of the professors gave me this interesting framework that I hope is rolled out across all of Waterloo. But he said, there's 3 kinds of assignments. There are AI not allowed, AI optional, and AI mandatory. And I was like, that's an amazing framework because it forces you to kind of in those three ways. One, can you do the things from first principles? Two, do you know when to use AI? It's the optional, like what's going to be valuable, what's not. And then three, you have to use AI because maybe the project is too large and you won't be able to get there without using a tool. So I actually like that kind of framework. And so with my kids, when they're researching a project or doing something, I encourage them, like, use AI. Like one of my sons likes to do like video editing and captioning. I'm like, dude, you should not be like listening to the audio and typing in it. You should be using a transcription, like trying to get them into the tool chain. And of course they grew up like with like the internet and mobile and iPads, but this AI thing is also new for them. And so maybe they use more voice than anybody else, but they're not like, they're starting to use like ChatGPT. They'll ask me a question. I go, did you ask ChatGPT? Like, what are you getting? And then they go, I didn't understand. They go, did you ask it to explain to you like you're 11? Right? So like learning to use those tools, it's going to be important. I would say they have to be a little careful because you could like take it, like they have to write an essay on what they did in summer vacation. Obviously, they could just ask it to generate something for them. Here's a picture from my summer vacation. Write me an essay based on this. So you want to make sure you're not skipping the learning. And the same thing is true, by the way, I think in just software dev in general. Like when Claude Code generates code for me, I still read it because I want to understand what it's doing. And I'm trying to learn how it thinks. And I'm also a part of the learning journey again around like a problem and solution space. Like, don't take that learning away from me. So I definitely want to still read the code.
Yep, very cool. And then, and you touched on Waterloo, which is something to talk about as well. Like, there's people who really know about it. There's people who haven't heard of it. And there's been a community, kind of like Trilogy, that you kind of grown up with. Like, what do you, like, so how do you think about that community versus like maybe, and also just Waterloo and Canada versus sort of like the US, the bigger systems, the other schools? Like, what do you kind of noticed having, worked all over the place?
Well, I think the funny thing is when I went to Trilogy in 98, and people asked me where I went to a school, I said Waterloo, and they said, what's Waterloo? Right? Like that was the time that I moved to the States. I don't think anyone's saying what's Waterloo anymore. But I think the cool thing is that there are great schools in a lot of places, and Waterloo happens to be one of those great schools, whereby you have curious, smart people willing to try different things that I think we want folks to like embrace these new ways. And so, you and I are in the same like Waterloo alumni WhatsApp group, and there's lots of founders and people talking about different topics because the whole idea is for us to learn as a community, move together. I think what's amazing about Canada is that like you can live in lots of places, Europe, Canada, South America, Australia. Like, I think that I think they're just different trade-offs. I think there could be great companies and great employees in all these places. Like we're a remote company. We have lots of Canadian employees. We have lots of American employees, European employees, like, Asian employees, everything. And I think the idea is that Waterloo could be this like amazing place to kind of like spit out entrepreneurs that could be in Canada, US, anywhere. As long as we have this like hopefully global community that stays together to talk about how we can learn together. So I actually think there's a lot to be learned from that approach. And I'm glad that there's a world renowned recognized school. Like, my CTO is Russian. Mikhail went to school in Russia. And when I said Waterloo, he goes, oh yeah, good school. Right? Like, cause I mean, the reason that is because like Waterloo used to routinely beat St. Petersburg for the ACM programming competition. Right. So it's just it had something different. And I would say one of the main things that was different about it was co-op. Right. So back to like, hiring 1,000 interns this year. We're big fans of the co-op program. You and I were both products of that as well. And coming out of school with 2 years experience really did change the way I approached full-time jobs, but also work after that, because I kind of knew what I liked and didn't like about the work world. And I would say one small but not insignificant thing is it taught me how to interview. Like we did so many interviews over the co-op period. Like I did at least 10 to 15 interviews for every co-op term, right? You're coming out. A new grad from any school is kind of first time interviewing. I've done 45 interviews already, and then going to get a full-time job made a big difference.
Yeah, that's huge. Cool. All right. So rapid fire round. Ready?
Yeah.
What do you think is the most overhyped engineering trend right now?
Overhyped. I think agentic is like in that territory because everyone's just like, oh, just give a problem and let the agent do the coding for you without ever looking at the code. So like a combo of like agentic vibe coding might be overhyped, but I think it will be there in the future. I think right now we're in the hype phase, but I think it will work eventually. So I'm not poo-pooing it. I'm just like, I think right now it's not there. It will get there.
Yep, totally with you. One hiring heuristic you really like to use?
I mean, you probably know this from my previous, is that like, I really like job trials. I'm a big fan of like having people work with you. Like, I think it's just a higher fidelity signal than interviews. And so like, that's why I love internships. It's basically like a 4-month interview for them working at the company. And then for us, that's like a great place to work. And so they're interviewing us, we're interviewing them. And that's a great signal into whether they should join Shopify full time.
Yeah, 100%. All right. One unpopular opinion you hold about engineering leadership.
Ooh. Oh, I think my team's going to probably attack me for this one. I think scheduled one-on-ones are useless. And so I really like unscheduled one-on-ones. I like to make myself available for like, somebody like needs you right now, I'm available for that. But I find like the scheduled one-on-one can be like, you can always find things to talk about, but I find you don't talk about the most important things.
Oh my God, I'm with you. I actually just canceled as a CEO, like on my schedule on ones. And I've been trying it, and I brought it back for like a month, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is much less useful than like the impromptu one-on-ones. So
I agree.
Very much with you. All right. So for you, this is super interesting for me. What's a blog post you think every engineering manager should read?
Every engineering manager should read. I mean, similar. There's probably two. I mean, right now, the number one thing you probably should read is the Steve Yagi Revenge of the Junior Developer post, because he's really focused on like where the world is going in terms of like, you're going to become an architect of agents that then builds all the code, and you're going to get feedback from them. So I think that actually is the world we're going to. I don't think we're there yet, but I think everyone should read it and look at that one diagram, which shows like you as the junior engineer, not at the bottom, but like in the middle, and you have a team of agents working for you. I think that's probably the thing I would have most people read right now.
Yeah, love that post. Agree. All right. Favorite productivity hack?
Time box, like Parkinson's law. My number one thing is just like shorten the time period. So like right now, if you're like, hey, I need this thing, and like you only give me half an hour, 2 hours, like whatever that is, time boxing is for sure the fastest way to kind of get something done. And I don't think it actually degrades quality. I think it can keep the same quality and just get it done quicker.
Yeah, 100%. I remember we talked about this like 10 years ago, time on task.
Yeah.
All right. And last one, best tool that you started using last year?
Perplexity. Like it's such a cop out now, but like I literally don't remember the last time I've gone to Google. I just go to Perplexity for everything. And I just find ask it questions I never would have asked Google. Just like weird questions that are just always on my mind that I can just be like, oh yeah, like how does this work? And I don't know why I never asked Google, because the answer is probably somewhere. But it's just the natural language interface makes it just so much easier. And I actually have my iPhone action button set to Perplexity voice. And so you can just be walking and just like double click and ask it a question.
That's amazing. Okay, we'll check that out. Where do people find you, like on socials and in places like that?
Yeah, so Twitter at FN Thawar, my last name. On LinkedIn, same thing, FN Thawar. Those are probably the two places where I try to like post my thoughts. And the reason I post them is not like some kind of like marketing. It's more like I want people to engage with my ideas and debate me.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll see you on socials. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you like this content, please join our LinkedIn group. Please thumbs up, please comment, please subscribe. We'd love to bring more of this content to you.